I would love to hear about your job experience. How you ended up in your machine learning engineer role. I think that that's like very interesting to a lot of people, and I think your story could also really help them understand what they could do to potentially land a job that they've been dreaming about.
Yeah. So a question I get asked a lot is, what am I going to get asked in an interview? And I don't really ever have a good answer, because the only tech role I had, I didn't really interview for. Um, and so I'll just tell the story of how it happened. So I was studying my online AI master's degree, like in this same bedroom. Um, and at the same time, I was documenting a lot, like posting a lot of just, I would almost maybe once a week a video, and then once a week an article, just like, hey, here are the things that I've learned this week, and here's what I'm working on, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was doing that. I would say, I think it was, I don't know the exact timeline again, but I think I've used in the past 9 months. So let's call it 9 months. I was 9 months into studying my own curriculum full time. Um, and then a girl on LinkedIn sent me a message. And it turns out I used to work with this girl because I was posting on LinkedIn, right? I was sharing all these things that I was doing. I had a blog, I had YouTube, and look, it's not for everyone, but this is just what I did. Um, and here's what happened from it. Um, a girl from LinkedIn messaged me and said, "Hey, I've been seeing your post on machine learning. I think that's like really cool and all that sort of stuff. Um, I think you should talk to Mike." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll talk to Mike." And I talked to Mike, and it turns out Mike knew Cam, who worked at a company in Brisbane, and they were working on machine learning problems. And I'm like, "Well, here's what I'm working on." This is me to Mike. I was like, "Well, I've been doing this. I created my own AI master's degree because I didn't want to really go back to university. I'm studying online. I'm just making all these things. I'd like to somehow get into machine learning and healthcare and all that sort of stuff." And he's like, "Oh, wow, you should meet Cam." Ended up meeting Cam. I told him the same story. "Hey, Cam, I've been studying my machine learning master's degree. I want to get into machine learning and healthcare. I'm thinking about," this is actually real. I was like at that point, like 9 to 10 months in, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to buy a one-way ticket to the US and find a job at a startup somewhere, and just see what happens. Because in my mind, I was like,
We could have hung out, man. Come on.
yeah,
We
could
could
have
have hung
met
out. You
you,
should have
man.
done it.
Um, I was like, in my head, I was like, well, I've AI and machine learning is like taking over the world. So there's going to be a bunch of startups, and America's kind of where all the technology and things happen. So why don't I just go there and just work it out? Um, so that was literally like my tentative plan. I hadn't bought the ticket yet, but I was like, that was what I was in my head. I was set on doing. And then Cam was like, "Well, why do you have to go to the US? You could just do it here." I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Well, we work on those sort of problems. Do you want to come in on Thursday?" And this was like on a Monday that I'd met Cam. And so shout out to Cam, shout out to Mike, legends. Um, and I went in on the Thursday, and it was kind of like a very informal internship. I like met the machine learning team, which is at that time was 2 people. So I was the third person. And we just had a bunch of structured data that we were going through. And so I spent the day just exploring it with pandas. And so they asked me at the end of the day, I was like, "Do you want to come back next Thursday?" And I was like, "Yep." And then went back on the next Thursday, did very similar thing, just more data exploration with pandas. I didn't even build a model yet. And then I think it was the third or maybe the fourth Thursday. Let's say the third, because I think it was only 2. And then the third one, it was like about lunchtime. And then I went out with the CEO and the head machine learning engineer at the time. And they're like, "Hey, do you want to roll?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll have a roll." And then I spent the next year and a half working there, on machine learning problems on a wide range of industries. I actually started building models after that, but there was a lot of data exploration. And so my takeaway from this is, how did I get a job? I was, first of all, with anything, of course, you need some sort of skill, right? So that's a foundational thing. So it wasn't like I was just walking, I was posting these things online of like doing what I was doing without actually doing them. So I was really just documenting what I was doing, which was studying all day, because I had nothing else to do. I didn't have a job. I was driving Uber. Oh, I did. I was driving Uber on the weekends to pay for courses, and just studying this new machine learning thing as much as I could, because I was basically obsessed with it. And so whenever someone asks like what should I do for a job, or what should I do in the interviews, I don't really have a great answer, because I didn't actually I didn't actually have a formal interview. It was literally like a sit down conversation. We had coffee. Do you want to come in on Thursday? Went in on Thursday, then got offered a role. But the first thing is, of course, build skill. And I think everyone kind of knows how to do that, because it's like you go through some courses, you work on some projects. Yes. The second one that I think really helped me out, because if we look back at that scenario, it was, I got lucky. I got lucky that someone saw my post and knew someone and then referred me to someone else. But the luck was kind of like pushed along by the fact that my work was there. And so if
you made a little of your own luck.
Yeah. So there's that saying, you create your own luck. And so whether I did, whether I didn't, like, if you just, it's a fun thought experiment to think, if I didn't put anything out there, would I have got that message? Probably not. I don't think so. Who knows? But that's what I say to like people. It's like, okay, you're building skill. Second of all is to share your work. And we've talked about this throughout this little conversation here, is that, okay, at the beginning, it's might not be very good. Like, but that's not very good compared to the people that you're comparing to. If you compare yourself, if I compared my 9-month self of when I first started learning machine learning, it was like a world apart. When I first started, of course, I didn't really know much. But after I'd been into it for 9 months, it was like, wow, I'm leaps and bounds of where I was. And so day to day is like, yes, okay, progress is going to disappoint, but over the long run, like if you're being consistent, if you're putting in effort, progress surprises. So that's a fun little saying there too. It's like, in the short term, progress disappoints, but in the long term, it surprises. So the way you can kind of, and I'm really bad at so I've always had this thing as well, is like with job applications, I pretend that if I apply through like apply for this job button, like on a careers page or whatever, I pretend like it's an automatic no for me. So with any job or whatever in the past that I've tried to go for, I've always tried to have either an in, or like I knew someone, or I've like gone above and beyond rather than just sending through a resume. Because like, this is just me. I've always hated the concept of a resume. I remember when I was first making one for like some first job in high school, I'm like, what the hell? I can't put all like this crap about me on like one page, and then someone looks at it and is like, oh yeah, this person. But that's just my take on it. So I kind of had to, if I go for like any role in the future, not that I'm looking for a job now, I probably won't apply directly through any sort of job portal. I'm going to be doing everything I can to, first of all, start the job before I have it, as in figure out the most ideal position I'd like to go for. And if it doesn't exist, I'd probably just start creating it. That's my advice to anyone who's thinking about going a job. Just create your own. But if you're actually going for a job somewhere at a company, is figure out what that person does day to day. And if you're smart enough to do research to like how to learn data sciences, how to learn machine learning, how to learn AI and all that sort of stuff, how to learn to code, you're kind of smart enough to do the same sort of research to figuring out what you're going to be doing day to day. And again, sometimes it's just as simple as asking someone. And then you set up, this is a beautiful way to get experience before you even have a job, is you take what someone's told you, you set up your own little project, and you go, well, I'm going to do this for the next 6 weeks and work on this thing. And then when someone asks, do you have any experience? You go, well, yeah, I actually talked to this person. They said that they do this. And so I designed my own project and worked on this for X amount of time. It didn't quite work out how I'd want it to, but here's all the code that I wrote. Here's like the analysis that I did after it. And here's probably what I do next. I mean, to me, if someone says that that's not experience, well, then you probably don't want to work there.
Then they're wrong.
So that's a very, again, a long-winded approach to like how I got a job. For me personally, it was building skill, sharing my work, and then somehow the universe threw an opportunity my way, and I hopped on board.
Well, my biggest thing is that if you didn't share your work, like you said, there's virtually no probability of that happening at all. I talked with the guys over at Sharpest Minds. So they do like a data science mentorship program, and they have all this data on the people that they mentor. And through like LinkedIn or through some of these platforms, the like interview acceptance rate for applications is literally, I think it's between 1% and 2%. So
Yeah.
like if you're applying, you apply to 100 jobs, you'll get 1 or 2 call-ins for an interview for like the average person. It's absurdly low.
And that's
Almost,
the average.
yeah.
And if you know about stats, the average is
Yeah, can be
don't cross
misleading.
a river if it's on average 4 foot deep.
Yeah. But so, people will get really disappointed. They're like, oh, I only got like 2 calls out of 20 back. And I'm like, those are great. That's great numbers, man. But at the same time, almost every data scientist that I've talked to, they did not get their job through a traditional route. And I think that that's a really, really important insight. And it's just highlighted in your story is that there's so many other ways to get noticed. There's so many like different things. And you brought up a bunch of really good ones of like, actually just talking to these people and learning more and doing even informational interviews. Like if you come in with a better understanding of the company than any other candidate, even if your data science or machine learning abilities are like, they're okay, like you're going to stand out so much because you've just done more homework. I mean,
yeah.
And is why people don't treat the interview process like they would treat a data science problem. I always say like, okay, people ask, what skills should I learn to be desirable in the job market? My advice is take 20 job postings that you're like really excited about and just aggregate what skills they're looking for. You'll have like a ranked list of which ones want which skills. And so just changing that thinking and looking at it like, no, it's not an optimization problem where if I apply to 500, I'll get this. And like, it's not a funnel.
Yeah.
There's shortcuts.
To me, that's putting the cart before the horse, that kind of way. Cause look, I just sort of this, like, I'd rather, instead of optimizing for the interview, like I'd rather optimize for the problems that I'm going to be working on.
Exactly.
So kind of doing it, that approach, like it kind of just, it just felt backwards to me. And so and who knows, maybe that's just because I just had no experience or whatever. But even now that I've worked at a company and I've like hired people, I would, at the end of the day, like if I've seen like someone's worked on something, like then that's like miles above like not having anything out there.